Hey, so my name's Haley Lassiter, and in this video, I'll be flipping through my math notebook and showing examples of how I use problem-solving strategies, reasoning and proof, mathematical communication, connections, and representations. I'm going to walk through the pages and explain how my work demonstrates these skills. So, let me start it off. I've been working through problems that we've seen on presentations. For instance, this is the burrito problem that we had to solve in three different strategies. I solved the same real world problems in three different ways. So the problem asks how many burritos someone can make with $20. When each burrito costs $4.12, and how much money would they have left. So this was my first column, and for this strategy I used repeated subtraction, taking away $4.12 over and over until I reached the remaining amount. This shows how I monitor progress step by step and adjust the strategy as needed. So then in the second column, I used repeated addition, so I added $4.12 multiple times to build toward $20. So this approach here helps me visualize the pattern and confirm the total. And then for the third method, I used multiplication to calculate 4 burritos at once, and then I subtracted that amount from $20 to find the leftover. So this combines symbolic notation with an efficient strategy. And so she can buy 4 burritos with $3.52 left over. So then at the bottom, I just reflected on how using graphic organizers helps students organize their thinking, choosing strategies like tables or pictures, and explain their reasoning clearly. So this shows mathematical communication and connections to teaching practice. So then here, on this page, I solved a fractional expression using decomposition and common denominators. I rewrote each mixed number using eighths here, and then combine them step by step. This demonstrates clear mathematical reasoning as I justify every part of the expression. So then this one, I actually kind of enjoyed doing this one. So I was figuring out how much Heather earned. If she makes $8 per hour for walking a dog, how many hours must she work to earn $256? So we had to show our math. So this was how I showed my math, and I did it in rows of 10. So I had 10, 20, 30, and then when I got to 40, I only had 2 until I got to 256. So I knew she worked 42 hours. This representation helped me to see the relationship between hours and total pay. So like I said, when that table reached 256, I identified the correct number of hours. And then there was also the pencil multiplication on this page. So for the problem about 5th graders and pencils, I used multi-digit multiplication to find the total number of pencils. And I recorded each partial product and then added them together, communicating each step clearly. So I got the final answer of 2,736 pencils. And this notebook really helped me to kind of remember how to do the multi-digit multiplication and long division, which I had kind of forgotten our age of calculators. So then here I drew a bar model to represent Jim's garden. The shaded part shows The planted section and the unshaded section represents what still needs flowers. And this allowed me to see that 1 out of 4 sections remains. So the answer is 1/4. And then here's the carrot and potato problem. And I just drew it out again to give me that visual. And then it also helped me to demonstrate connections between fractional relationships. Then for the number line, I divided it into 8ths and labeled key benchmark fractions. And then I identified the location of 3/4. And the representation helped me visualize fractions as positions on a continuous scale. And then for this circle model, I showed that 4/8 is equivalent to 1/2 by shading the sections and writing the equivalent fraction. So this demonstrates both visual and symbolic representations. So here I had a recap on integers. So on this page, I worked through an integer reasoning problem. And I analyzed each expression and used mathematical properties like divisibility and square roots to determine which option must be a positive integer. So this demonstrates deductive reasoning. And then also I did estimation. And here I messed up also. So it kind of helped me to remember all the things I've kind of forgotten over time. So for the estimation, I rounded the numbers before multiplying to find a reasonable estimate. And I compared the estimated product to the exact calculation and even reflected on my mistake when I didn't round from the front end. So this shows how I evaluate and adjust my strategy. So on this page, I focused on factors and multiples. And I kind of went back over those factor trees. I used a factor tree to break 96 into its prime factors, and I rewrote it using exponential notation to show the complete factorization. So this is a clear mathematical representation. And in the next section, I explained that the teacher was addressing the standard on identifying prime numbers. And I connected the question to the mathematical concept being taught. And then, this just kind of helped me kind of go back over like what exactly is a prime number and how to find your factors. And then I have the lowest common multiple. And for the lowest common multiple problems, I found the lowest common multiple of 12, 15, and 18 by breaking each number down into prime factors and then combining them. My final inequality shows the range of possible values for n, communicating the reasoning clearly. And then some more. And on this page, I solved an angle problem using the fact that the straight line equals 180. By combining supplementary angle relationships, I solved for the unknown angle and then figured out here that the value of x. And I even did this regular polygon problem. And I used the formula for the interior angles of the regular polygon and then calculated the exterior angles. And I used those values to solve for the sum of angles x and y. So using calculation and reasoning, I found that 144. And this was also very helpful in just review and here I worked and I was completely doing it wrong and I had to rework it and re-strategize to figure out what I needed to actually do to correct myself. So Overall, I think the notebook shows how I use multiple strategies and justify my thinking to communicate clearly, make mathematical connections, and use the representations to understand and solve problems. So thank you for watching my notebook flip through, and I do think that working through these problems did help me to pass my CKT praxis. Thank you so much.